Cartoons are not for children. Okay, for like 40 years they were almost exclusively for kids, but they weren't originally created for them. Some of the most successful and iconic animations of the past 30 years were specifically designed for adults. And aside from a few iconic Disney creations, it's safe to say cartoons are more enjoyable when they are constructed for older audiences. Today I'm going to take you all on a nostalgia trip, covering adult cartoons from their inception in the 1920s all the way to the crowning point of Adult Swim, the mecca of adult animations. Drink water.
I fuck with Adult Swim.
In the 1920s, Hollywood was booming, producing an average of 800 feature films per year. There were some cartoons,
like I said,
but they
as far
were
as
still
like
in early
TV, I feel like
the few
Adult Swim
cartoons
was like
that were made in the 20s were shown at cinemas before a feature film. They were essentially short films with no dialogue, just music and sound effects. It was also in the 1920s where there was a big push for harsher censorship in films and theatrical performances. The Supreme Court ruled in 1915 that free speech did not extend into motion pictures. A lot of films, such as the ones performed at the New York stage, had mature content, nudity, cursing, and adult subject matter. It was like the Wild West with no rules and regulations. In 1927, there was a censorship committee formed by Will Hayes, a Republican politician, to propose some do's and don'ts in the film industry. It took a while for these suggestions to become an actual enforced code, known as Hayes Code. And in the meantime, cartoons would take advantage of the minimal regulations. This was known as the pre-code era. Betty Boop. She was a caricature of the 1930s.
We already know
a
Betty
woman
Boop
with
beyond
more love
OC.
to give than knowledge to share.
With the fucking
Typically
edginess.
depicted as being innocent yet scandalous.
Especially
she had a
with her
baby
sex
face
appeal
with the
and
body
shit.
of a grown woman.
Like,
Many of
they
these
really
early
sexualized
productions
the shit
were
out of her.
heavily sexualizing Betty and other animated women. Some of these straight up glamorizing.
Niggas used to beat their dicks to her back in the day.
Do you like your job? Well, I think if I were you, I'd go so you better come up with me.
They pretty much depicted every way possible a woman's dress could get removed from her body. Betty exploded in popularity. However, with the enforcement of Hayes Code in 1934, the animation studio was required to button up Betty's image. She went from being a free spirit flapper to a housewife/career girl.
Desexualizing begins.
Her curls got straightened out, her earrings got smaller, and she slowly became more mature. She even smelled different. Okay, we don't know how she smelled, but I think we can all agree smelling good is feeling good, which is why Scentbird is a necessary service for you. Scentbird is a fragrance subscription service with over 600 different designer fragrances available to you at a fraction of the price. The low monthly price gives you the ability to sample one designer fragrance every month. I know I don't feel comfortable buying a $300 to $600 cologne that I haven't even tried out yet. The sample size will last you a full 30 days. You can test out a different one every time, or even take advantage of the low cost and keep getting the same one. You also have the ability to skip a month. It arrives in this small package. Your cologne or perfume will come in this nice little bag. Little twist.
Promo code mouse
it's ready to spray. You could take the whole thing out if you want. I went with the Mercedes-Benz Man because I'm trying to smell like I drive a Mercedes because I can't actually afford one. Now at least I smell rich. I also received the Chris Collins Harlem Nights scent. This fragrance has me feeling like I'm walking through a Harlem speakeasy smelling like rum and musk. Scentbird works directly with brands like Gucci, Prada, Versace, so your product is 100% authentic. Click the link in the description to get started with a sample quiz to find out exactly what you want, and use code Patrick55 for 55% off to make your first month just over $7. By 1939, Betty Boop was over, but would be aired on television progressively throughout the next 60 years, stamping her in cartoon history. Hayes Code seemed to have uninspired.
She's still legendary though. I'm sure she's still legendary even when she was like desexualized.
Humor at the time revolved around themes that were now banned by the code, so creators had to try and entertain the adult audiences inconspicuously through their children's shows. Animated shorts hit new strides.
Really had to maintain. That's how it is now. Like they really got to maintain
like and Snow White,
entertaining like kids and adults.
Captivate audiences for extended periods of time. In the 40s, there was Bugs Bunny, Tom and Jerry, Bambi. They were definitely designed for children,
Disney,
but
Looney
parents could
Tunes.
watch and be entertained. Storylines were basic. Most of the humor came
Bugs
from
Bunny,
faces,
you know what I'm saying? Mickey Mouse.
just basic tropes that would make kids laugh.
You know what I'm saying?
In
Disney
1949,
animations.
the first animated television series was launched, called Crusader Rabbit. Gumby in the 50s was a groundbreaking new animation style, but most of the 50s was dominated by the same
Tom and Jerry. Tom and Jerry go to too.
40s. Television sales were exploding in popularity.
I think like Tom and Jerry's like
series
still
were
like
not
one of the most like
regularly programmed
arguably
yet.
like
You
best
had
cartoons
experimental
like today.
5-minute episodes programmed by various stations at
Tom and Jerry
different
goated.
times. Popeye being one of the more famous ones,
Popeye.
and was
Popeye's
pretty
goated
much
too.
adult targeted, leaning into relatable humor, the best kind. That was a joke. Focused on the working class man and relating to his struggles. Like, wow, the pipe broke on this sink. Oh my god, I hate
Popeye was
when
having a
that
stroke, though.
happens. There was a massive shift in
Popeye
the
was looking like
60s.
he had a
The
stroke.
birth of Hanna-Barbera Animations. Basically, every American household has a TV now. You had the Flintstones, the Jetsons, Pink Panther,
Goated.
Scooby-Doo,
Goated.
Spider-Man, Hulk, so many
shit.
more. Regularly scheduled
Flintstones was my
cartoons
shit,
enjoyed
too.
by millions, so you
Flintstones.
don't have to go to the cinema to see animation.
I used to have that
There
shit
was
on
more
DVD.
variety, better writing, still leaning into the working class man and the modern family, but the colors were brighter, the scenes and animation were more imaginative. TVs in general were more creative and fun. Most of these cartoons were still family friendly, designed for children, yet really enjoyable for
Yogi
adults to
Bear,
watch as well. The 70s was the
Scooby-Doo,
birth of
Jetsons,
Nickelodeon. However, the
Oh, shit,
mid-70s to
Nickelodeon.
mid-80s would be the weakest era for new
I
cartoons.
think Nickelodeon was like the
70s
first to
were
make
carried by
cartoons.
shows that were started in the
Like
60s.
before,
Critics,
Cartoon
whoever they
Network.
are, say the golden age of animation ended in 1972. Obviously, everyone born in the 70s or later would say that's cap, but many of the most critically acclaimed, financially successful, and culturally significant animated films and cartoons
Like
were
how I'm
released
saying the
from
kids
20s
now.
to the early
And they talk
70s.
shit about early
However,
2000
they had
cartoons.
significantly less variety and less
I'm like, nah,
competition,
nigga.
so it's a
Y'all
lot
cartoons don't
easier
got
for
it.
those cartoons to have a bigger impact. These old cartoons were considered to be more lifelike, emotionally relatable, and contained valuable lessons. But a lot of adults may argue that cartoons are not a place where they want to learn life lessons, and rather escape into a creative and complex alternate reality, not to remind them how much their
So you
boring
went wrong
life
there,
is just
too.
like this boring cartoon. To no surprise, cartoon ratings were plummeting, resulting in budget cuts and then the release of low-budget
like they are now.
animations that didn't have a lasting impact. The 1980s
like they
were the
are
birth
now,
of the
man.
Disney Channel. Shows like
Disney
The
Channel.
Smurfs, Thomas the Tank Engine, and Alvin and the Chipmunks were hits for children. But the late 80s
go to
felt like
shit.
cartoons were catering to their teenage
I watched The
and
Smurfs,
adult
but I didn't
audiences
watch,
a lot
Alvin
more.
and
At this
Chipmunks.
point, for almost 40 years, cartoons were perceived to be for children and almost exclusively designed for children. Like, it started
Right.
out exclusively for adults, then immediately did a 180 for kids, and was slowly building towards being designed for adults
This
again.
nigga really
Teens
doing
were waking
backgrounds.
up in the morning, eating cereal, watching tunes,
This nigga
and
did his
chilling
whole
on the couch
research on
after
why
school,
cartoons
watching
weren't
tunes.
made, like,
Teenage
this
Mutant
nigga go
Ninja
to for that shit.
Turtles, Transformers,
Oh, yeah, Teenage
He-Man
Mutant
and the
Ninja Turtles,
Masters
yep.
of the Universe, Thundercats,
He-Man,
RoboCop.
Goated,
These were
Goated,
designed more
RoboCop,
so for teenagers and opened up
Thundercats,
a lot more opportunities for
Optimus
advanced
Prime,
animation,
yep.
more action, and
That-
more
that's some good
advanced
shit.
storylines.
That was
could
all
be
that shit was
understood,
gas.
not just ha-ha bonk on the head humor. There were a plethora of new shows being premiered only
Action.
to be discontinued
Yeah.
after a season or so. The scenes
A lot
were
of live
more
ac- well, not live
imaginative
action,
and
but, like,
immersive.
just action.
Unfortunately, a lot of the shows didn't stick or become as culturally long-lasting as shows made in the 90s. But in 1989, something big
Understandable.
happened. A cartoon written and
Like,
designed
we know why, we know
for
why.
adults without being racist or overly sexual. The Simpsons. The Simpsons is not
Goated.
written for kids. It's written for adults.
Way
was
better.
said by Matt
This show, like,
Groening,
I feel
who
like-
created the show.
me personally,
Matt
I
was a
feel like The
visionary.
Simpsons is way
He
better
knew
than
that the
fucking Family
mainstream
Guy.
audience wanted and needed
'Cause, you know, Family Guy
an
corny as
adult-oriented
shit.
cartoon show. So he
Like,
made
I
it
feel like
happen.
even
Homer
arguably right
Simpson
now, I
and
feel
Marge
like-
Simpson
like, The
are
Simpsons
married
really
with
got
3
it.
children, Bart, Lisa, and Maggie.
feel like
They lived
that
in
whole,
the
like,
middle
adult
America
animation
town of
shit.
Springfield. It was an animated sitcom without the laugh track, leaning into a
Yeah.
classic sitcom storyline: the
Facts.
average American family. Breakfast in the morning, conflict in the day, resolution.
yellow
at night.
colored
It
family,
was as
bro.
basic as it gets in terms of
That's doing
understanding
way
the
better than
general
fucking
plot.
Family
Just
Guy.
watch the first episode
fucking
and you have
Cold
almost
Hog, my
all the
nigga.
background information
fuck
needed
outta
to
here.
watch the next 32 seasons. Although it was basic in nature, every episode was a new day and the creative possibilities were endless. Homer would overreact, get in ridiculous situations, and handle them how basically nobody would handle them.
How about that rain check for the last night?
Don't look at me! Freak!
Oh, no.
The animation style stood out from the rest immediately. They were all
Nah, for
yellow,
real.
they all
It
had
really did
extremely
stand out,
unique
though.
features like huge mouths and weird-shaped heads. The show was carried by the extensive array of wacky side characters, all that have memorable characteristics and are voiced by unique and talented actors. The most successful primetime cartoon in history at this point. The Simpsons Season 1 in 1990
Mount
averaged a
Rushmore
whopping
cartoons, fuck outta here.
27 million viewers per episode. The Simpsons proved that a cartoon designed just for adults can not only be successful,
It sure
but
did.
be the most successful. Liquid Television. Produced by MTV and
still
released
is
in
successful.
1991, it was a compilation of
MTV.
animated shorts by independent artists.
MTV
They were
used to be
pushing the
successful
boundaries
too,
of
but I don't know what the fuck
animation, and
MTV
all of
on
it was
nowadays.
catered to adults.
Like,
It was
they
this
just, like,
little secret
overscheduling,
network
like,
within
ridiculous
a
all
network that
fucking
only
day
a few
now.
knew about, which sounds familiar. This was the birth of Beavis and Butthead,
Beavis
which
and
was a
Butthead,
crude,
oh, shit.
humored show about two
Yeah,
dumbasses
real
who
ghost
couldn't
shit.
do anything right.
We tricked him. He's probably like, there's nobody here.
OC.
And were obsessed
OC.
with the idea of getting laid.
Ladies beware.
Sure, it only lasted a few seasons, but it is culturally iconic. At the time, this was groundbreaking in terms of what comedy and adult cartoons could be.
Primarily,
Well, me and my
children
guys
watch
be on that
cartoons,
Beavis and Butthead shit in real life.
but adults watch cartoons too. In fact,
The creator of
in
Cartoon
the
Network.
evening, on the average
Ted Bunny.
evening, more adults.
I already know that shit. I already know this nigga named Ted Bunny and all that.
That was Ted Turner, creator of the iconic
I mean, Ted Turner, yeah, Ted Turner.
Ted was a
Why I say
visionary
Ted
who knew
Bunny?
how badly the world needed cartoons. His strategy started with buying the rights to every cartoon ever made. Sounds like an overstatement, but let me
Why the
break it
fuck I
down.
said Ted Bunny?
Ted
I
founded
didn't say-
CNN, the very first
I know his
24-hour
name's
news
Ted,
network
though.
in 1980. 1 year later, he purchased MGM Studios and United Artists for $1.5 billion, in which he
Brilliant.
sold a portion to cut down on the debt. He remained with
Brilliant.
MGM's pre-1986 library, which included thousands of films, but more importantly, a ton of classic cartoons. Looney Tunes, Merry Melodies,
Got
Popeye,
it.
the list goes
Got
on.
it.
In 1991, he purchased almost all of Hanna-Barbera Productions
Hanna-Barbera,
catalog, which
yep.
included the Flintstones, Scooby-Doo, the Jetsons, and many,
Jetsons,
many more.
yeah.
Basically, Ted now owned the rights to every popular cartoon made in the last 60
Powerpuff
years
Girls, I
that
see all
wasn't
that
made
shit
by
in the
Disney.
background.
And with that, he started the first ever 24-hour network
All them go-to cartoons
dedicated
in the
to
background,
strictly
bro. Y'all kids
cartoons.
today will never
The
know,
Cartoon
bro.
Network did not explode in popularity right away. It was a bunch of
Facts.
reruns of old shows acting as a little nostalgia kick for older folks. This ultimately was a genius strategy because imagine trying to start a 24-hour network with 0 shows that
that
people
shit
knew.
plummet.
It would be impossible to get off the ground. So the network
It
started
plummet.
with only old shows and got to work producing originals. Just when you think TV is going to be taken over by all adult animations, we got another
The fuck?
renaissance of children's cartoons on Nickelodeon. Doug, Rugrats, Ren and Stimpy, Rocko's
Goated.
Modern
Ren
Life,
and Stimpy,
Kablam,
Rock-
Ah
Rocko's
Real
Modern Life.
Monsters, Hey Arnold. Nickelodeon was
Hey
the
Arnold.
go-to place for children's
That was my
cartoons.
shit. Hey Arnold was
Even
my
though
shit.
some
Rocko's
of
Modern
these
Life was
early
my shit.
cartoons were barely
Yeah.
for kids. While Disney
Ren and
was
Stimpy was
producing the
beyond,
perfect
like-
imagination land
Ren and
where
Stimpy was
everything's
on some
happy
other
and
shit.
nice,
Like, the people that wrote that
Nickelodeon
show
was
was on some
bringing
other shit,
totally
bro.
original animation styles, grim scenery,
Rocko's Modern
and
Life was
taking
on some other
creative
shit, too.
risks. Cartoon
But
Network
Ren and
slowed
Stimpy,
down
bro,
on
that
airing
shit-
old
that
shows
shit
in
was on.
1996, and they were ready to roll out their originals. Dexter's Laboratory,
The opposite
Johnny
of OC.
Bravo, Cow and Chicken, Ed, Ed and Eddie, Courage the Cowardly Dog. It's safe to say in the 90s, the line between
Bro,
what
people used to
cartoons
say they
are
were
for
scared of, like,
adults
Courage the
and
Cowardly
what
Dog back
cartoons
in
are
the
for
day, bro.
children is very blurry. It could be because the censorship that was enforced in the 30s wasn't really challenged for 50 years or so when The Simpsons came out. I'm not saying that the 90s cartoons were edgy, but they were a little darker, more intrepid,
Facts.
more intense, and overall more adult appealing. The 90s in general were a little darker and rebellious towards the 80s, where everything was seen as loud, colorful, and glamorous. Counterculture
Go
became
to era.
cool. Grunge music and gangster
Rock
rap
music,
became popular.
gangster
So
rap,
cartoons really
yeah.
blended in with the aesthetic of the culture. We are going to be different. So let's be cool
That was a
and
go-to era. The
reserved
90s had
and
a
do
go-to era,
exactly the opposite of what the 80s would do. South Park, 1997. The first episode was crass, in-your-face humor.
South Park, oh shit.
You can't come to school with me. Go home, you dildo. Dude, don't call my brother.
I remember this show used to diss the shit out.
This show was
Family
not
Guy,
for
too.
kids, which is funny because it's a bunch of 4th graders. At this point, The Simpsons proved you can make fun of pop culture, make fun of politics, make edgy, rude jokes while entertaining millions of people and creating a 9-figure worth show. South Park is not unique in its use of satirical humor, but it is one of the most effective satires due to its
Satire,
production
yeah.
format. The scripts for episodes are not written before the season begins, but the production of an episode begins on a Thursday with the creators, Matt Stone and Trey Parker, and the show's writers brainstorming ideas
Facts.
for the episode. The script will be written, animated, and voiced for release on Wednesday nights, just 6 days of work. We work between 100 and 120 hours in a 7-day week to deliver the episodes. This hectic production allows South Park to be in the zeitgeist of pop culture while it is happening. For example, in the season 4 episode Quintuplets 2000, the show nearly does a one-to-one recreation of a famous photo of a U.S. Border Patrol raid during the Elian Gonzalez affair, an event that occurred 4 days before the show aired. The season 7 episode, It's Christmas in Canada, references the discovery
crazy.
and capture of Saddam Hussein, which happened 3 days before the episode aired. Season 12's About Last Night revolves around Barack Obama's presidential victory, which happened less than 24 hours before the episode aired. On the surface, the show appeals to almost any age group, but the news-like coverage of more serious current events is certainly appealing to an adult audience. South Park has won 5 Primetime Emmy Awards as well as the prestigious Peabody Award, which honors excellence in storytelling that reflects the social issues and the emerging voices of our day. South Park remains one of Comedy Central's highest-rated programs, and in 2021 was renewed through 2027. 2 years after South Park came Family Guy, another soon-to-be iconic adult animated series, focused on a New England family,
was iconic,
which was reminiscent
like in
of
the first
Simpsons
season,
with
but
a
once they got to like
father, stay-at-home wife, and
season
of course,
9 and
the
shit
3
like
kids.
that, they got
The first
really
episode
corny.
aired on Fox
They're very
immediately
corny
after
now.
Super Bowl 33 to 22 million
Like, in my
viewers.
opinion, type
Season
shit.
1 maintained high viewership, but would dwindle through the
I'm
second
sure some
and
people
third
are still
seasons.
laughing at
Following
it,
the
but
third season's
me
declining
personally, like,
viewership, Fox decided to
Family Guy
cancel
was
the
like,
show in 2002. Hard to imagine a time where Family Guy wasn't totally loved. Maybe it was just too similar to The Simpsons?
Yeah, people didn't
This
really
wasn't
like
the
Family
end
Guy
of the
back in the day.
Griffins. There would be a savior coming to their rescue. The 2000s, a new century. This meant change.
2000s.
Changing back into
My era.
kid-friendly cartoons. Again,
Big Red
Nickelodeon
Dog.
started drifting from the grim, dark cartoons to more companionable and kid-friendly with the additions of SpongeBob,
SpongeBob.
Fairly Odd Parents, The Wild
They milking the shit out of
Thornberrys,
SpongeBob
Rocket Power,
nowadays,
Jimmy
so.
Neutron. They still had Invader
Rocket-
Zim, Cat Dog, and Danny
Invader Zim,
Phantom.
that was my
Disney
shit.
Channel was
Danny
even
Phantom,
more kid-friendly.
Cat Dog.
Cartoon Network was kind of the place where the cool teenagers indulge. But it was spiraling down pretty fast. The network had a new CEO when the
As
company
it is
was
now.
merged with Time Warner AOL. New ownership and new leadership will lead to changes. All of their iconic shows like Dexter's Lab, Johnny
Laboratory,
Bravo,
Johnny
and Courage
Bravo,
were getting
Courage.
canceled. They rebranded,
Damn,
launched
they
a
were,
few
they
new
were, they
shows
were, they
that
were,
are
they were.
beloved today, but weren't necessarily hits at the time.
Yeah, they were getting
Codename
canceled.
Kid Next
Fuck,
Door,
I was mad as
Billy
shit when
and
they got
Mandy,
canceled, too.
Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. These
Yes,
shows
yes,
were a
or-
little bit softer compared
Grim
to
Reaper.
previous Cartoon Network
Grim
originals and were
Adventures,
loved
sorry.
by
Billy
children,
and
but
Mandy.
not teenagers and adults. So there was a gap in the market. There wasn't a go-to place where adults could escape into an animated universe and not have to worry about censorship and juvenile humor. Until 2001, with the birth of Adult Swim, the very first animated network designed
There we go.
specifically for adults.
Oh shit. Get out of the pool. All kids
The
get out the
branding was
pool.
clever.
Oh
All
shit.
kids out of the pool, because now it
That
was
shit
time
was
for the
goated,
adults to
bro.
have some fun without
That shit was genius.
childishness. The shows often had a more mature
I wanna have,
sentiment,
like-
coarse
like on my
language,
channel, I
and
wanna, like,
sexual innuendos. The Adult Swim programming block
Adult
launched
Swim
just
filter
2
my
nights a
channel,
week,
too.
with one of those being just
Just
a
'cause I'm, like,
repeat of the
inspired
other.
by Adult
Original
Swim.
series would be aired such as Aqua Teen
Aqua Teen
Hunger
Hunger
Force,
Force.
The Brack Show, Space
Brack
Ghost
Show.
Coast
Brack
to
Show's
Coast,
goated.
C-Lab 2021, and more.
Star Ghost,
Adult
that shit
Swim
was goated, too.
kinda had a cheat code to launch the network. Since Ted Turner purchased the
Ted
Hanna-Barbera
Turner.
catalog in the 90s,
What a
they were
genius
able
Ted
to
Turner
use
was,
classic cartoons such as Scooby-Doo and new shows like Harvey Birdman. This may not seem like a big deal, but having the rights to a classic cartoon and being able to tell a new story around those 50-year-old characters is
Genius.
a huge advantage to gaining new viewership.
Fucking
Imagine your dad
genius. Why
flipping
can't they
through
be
the
genius like
channels and
this
seeing
now,
Yogi
bruh?
Bear on the witness stand.
Oh
He would be
my God.
confused but interested to see one of his
It's old
childhood
days. Y'all
cartoons
kids
be
didn't even know,
reimagined.
bro.
Adult Swim could arguably get the credit for
Cowboy
introducing
Bebop,
Americans
that's
to
my shit.
anime, broadcasting popular shows like Cowboy Bebop and Mobile Suit Gundam. By late 2002, the network was becoming more interested in obtaining the rights to animated series that had been canceled. Again, knowing how hard it is to make new cartoons and get a new audience when you can just capture an already existing audience. One of the first and more notable of these was Futurama, which they obtained the rights to reruns for a reported $10 million.
Futurama's goated
Jim
too.
Samples,
Still is
Cartoon
goated.
Network's executive VP, said, Futurama reruns will take our Adult Swim programming to a whole different level. Adult Swim would come to the rescue for another show, which would become a pivotal moment for both the network and the series.
Adult Swim just a
Family
beautiful
Guy.
fucking
3
network.
seasons that had
Adult Swim needs its
previously aired
own
on
channel. I've been
Fox
thinking
would
about-
now have a
What
new
y'all think in the
home
comments?
on
Do y'all think Adult
Swim.
Swim should have
The
their own
president of
channel?
Fox tried selling Family Guy, but nobody wanted it. We ended up giving
Y'all let
it
me know in
to
the comments,
Cartoon
though.
Network.
Do y'all think
basically
Adult
for
Swim should have their
free.
own
In 2003,
channel?
it became the block's top-rated program. The Griffins boosted the viewership of Adult Swim and Cartoon Network
flexing
as a
on
whole
Fox.
by 239%. The same
Yep.
week Family Guy aired on Adult
As they
Swim,
always do.
Fox released the first 2 seasons on DVD. 400,000 copies within a month were
Fox
sold.
come crawling
the
back.
reruns and DVDs were so successful that Fox ordered
That's probably why they be
35
dissing
new
the shit out of
episodes
Fox. It was
Family
like
Guy
all
in
they-
2004.
all
Adult
Fox
Swim
shows, they be
officially
dissing the
brought
shit
the
out of
show
Fox.
back from the dead. With a massive increase in viewership, the Adult Swim block was expanded from 2 to 5 nights a week. Adult cartoons were about to take over. 2005 to 2015 would
Swim's some mob
arguably be
shit.
the peak of Adult Swim. Futurama
Facts.
and Family Guy were bringing in the consistent new viewers who were slowly
Swim's
and
on some
surely
mob
getting
shit.
into the network's originals such as Venture Bros and Aqua Teen Hunger Force.
Man, you gotta check this out.
Oh, yeah, baby. That's a neat car she's washing. You think that's a straight six?
I think I have a straight six.
Ooh, your sexual innuendo is priceless.
Iconic long-running shows like Robot Chicken and the Boondocks would be introduced.
Boondocks go to 2. Oh my god.
tried.
Sorry, honey.
Too bad they can't bring that shit
like a
back. Right?
bastard. I can't wait.
Syndicated classics, King of the Hill and American Dad are running.
King of the Hill. King of the Hill was solid.
Not dead.
King of the Hill was solid to me back in the day. I didn't have a problem with King of the Hill.
How could you do this to me?
It was like one of those like okay
In
shows.
2007, they would
In
expand
my
their
opinion.
programming to 7 nights a week, even branching out of animation with the Tim and Eric Awesome
Go
Show,
thinking.
Eric Andre Show, Loader Squad.
Corny.
Although its popularity was at
Loader-
an all-time
Loader
high,
Squad was
Adult
goated.
Swim still felt like this
Andre-
dark corner
Eric
of TV
Andre Show,
that
that
only
shit was
people with a
fucking-
secret password were allowed
That
to
shit was
watch.
corny.
These were shows you escape into when you're alone at night and with all the lights off, not with the whole family in the
Facts.
living room. You built relationships
Facts.
with the characters.
These are
and
shows that
became
you would sneak to
emotionally
watch.
invested. If you were young, you didn't want your parents to find out what you were watching. Adult Swim
Facts.
gave up-and-coming creators a chance to display
the
their
fuck was
animations
this?
to the masses. They
What the
embraced
fuck show was
underground
that?
hip-hop and lo-fi.
Oh, the aesthetic,
Which at
the
the time
fucking
had very
vibey ass
little
commercials.
representation. They were also known for their iconic bumps, which were
Right.
5 to 10 second segments after
fucking,
the show
vibey
and
ass
before
transitions.
commercials. Also after the commercials and before the show. These bumps
facts.
took away an extra commercial or two to provide a nice transition for the viewer.
Yeah,
Most
they're-
networks would just run another commercial for the bag. They were designed to be relaxing, usually accompanied with a
As they
creative or
are.
funny
They still
visual
have those, so
and
I'm glad
calm
they still
music.
have shit
The
like
black screen with white text became the most iconic bump style. In 2021, people were creating their own Adult Swim bumps on TikTok, and it was probably the best trend I've ever seen on that app. Adult
Facts.
Swim wasn't this roaring financial beast like Nickelodeon or Disney Channel or even its host Cartoon Network. But
Adult
they
Swim
were
was his own
creating
breed,
culture
bro.
and satisfying a market that was
Super
so
Joe- Super Joe's
desperately
kinda
in need of
ass.
something beyond Family Guy.
What y'all
and
think about
Simpsons.
Super Joe in the
Cartoon
comments?
Network had a
I thought it was
second
kinda
boom
ass.
in the 2010s with Adventure Time, Regular Show, and The Amazing World of Gumball, while Disney and Nick were hanging on for dear life. However,
Go to
Adult Swim
cartoons.
would get blessed with the introduction of Rick
I heard
and Morty in
Nickelodeon turned down
2013.
Adventure
Rick and
Time,
Morty
too.
follows Rick Sanchez, a cynical
Morty.
mad scientist, and his timid grandson Morty. These two
I heard
split
people
their
not fucking
time
with,
between a
Rick and Morty no
complicated
more.
home life and interdimensional space travel. There aren't enough words to explain the imaginative and insane plot lines in this show. It's been
Facts.
memed heavily, and the mainstream audience definitely makes it seem a bit cringe, but it's a really
Facts.
great show even still to this day.
It's hella
Throughout
cringy
its
now.
5 seasons, Rick and Morty has measured
Like,
an
I heard
average
people really not,
viewership
like,
of 1.67
messing
million
with it.
viewers, which in the modern streaming era is excellent.
anymore.
Its influence around the world is immense, with multiple video games, tabletop games, memes, and music.
I didn't know
But
they
as
made
you
video
know,
games.
the way most of these videos end, the streaming era. The downfall of television and birth of social media
Facts.
leads
HBO
to the
Max.
rapid dwindling relevance of these networks. Half of the people watching this video don't have cable anymore or don't care to watch it. The others won't be
Facts.
purchasing HBO Max or any other streaming services to watch new or even old classic cartoons. Adult Swim,
era we
Cartoon
in now.
Network, Disney Channel, Nick, they're doing fine. Times are different now. There are too many streaming services and too many
Sadly.
social media platforms for
Sadly, times
cartoons
are different,
or networks
bro.
to have much cultural impact. Children's
I miss the old
animations
era.
are
I miss the old
definitely
era
more
so bad,
financially
bro.
successful and popular.
That's for another
Watching
video.
them later on in life is a heavy dose of innocence and youthfulness, but the longevity and
Hopefully y'all
day-to-day
enjoy this
value
reaction
that
video though.
adult cartoons
Like if y'all want me to do
bring
more
is
reaction videos like
unmatched.
this, y'all let
No
me know in
matter
the
where
comments,
you
man.
decide to watch them, whether they are old or new, adult cartoons are and always will be the superior animations.
Facts.